Hi, everybody. My name is Megan, and welcome to The Kettle. This is a channel and community all about living our modern lives with more wisdom and warmth and connection. And today we're going to be talking about something I love, one of my very favorite things, and that is tea. I'm going to put this pot down right now so that my arm doesn't get tired before I can start drinking it. So I am sitting on the floor right now. I've been trying to spend more time sitting on the floor and not in chairs. There's a lot of research out there about how sitting in chairs is not good for us, especially the amount of time we spend in chairs. And I tend to spend time during my day sitting both in chairs and on the sofa. And sometimes I work in my bed. So it can really start to strain my lower back. And I have realized that when I spend more time sitting on the floor, I just feel better. It's good for core strength. It's good for getting those hips kind of loosened up. And I can tell the difference. So I spend a little time every day actually sitting on my floor with my tea right now, which is really nice. This spot where I'm recording from is right next to my bed. So when I get up in the morning, this is the view that I have. It's pretty incredible, I have to say, especially this time of year. The pond and the leaves and everything else. Thank you to my husband for the placement of this bedroom window. That was all his doing. And I feel very fortunate that this is the view that I get to see every day. So let's talk about tea. If you are a tea lover or have been paying any attention to the world of tea over the years, you've probably heard of a tea meditation or a tea ritual or a tea ceremony. And I think those things tend to bring up really specific images in our mind. For me, it's a highly decorative, ritualized, almost religious ceremony that you're seeing. So, as I've mentioned, if you've been following my work for any length of time, and I'm not just here on YouTube, my YouTube channel is very new, but I've been a podcaster for a long time. And I also have a Substack newsletter called The Kettle. And I have been enrolled in a tea sommelier program for some time that I'm getting ready to wrap up this spring. And I opened a brick and mortar tea shop a couple of years ago that I now have 2 locations for. So I've been learning a lot about tea over the past few years. It's been something I've loved almost my whole life. As long as I can remember, I have been a tea drinker. But really, in the last few years is when I started to dig more into the background, the history, the culture around tea across different cultures, because it's very different. Tea brings a different flavor, so to speak, to the different cultures that it has been adopted by. And each culture that has adopted tea has sort of adopted it in their own unique way, which I think is really cool. I'm not sure what it says about the United States, that something like 70 to 80% of our tea consumption is iced tea, and typically very sweetened iced tea, and probably, honestly, bottled sweetened iced tea if we really dug into the numbers. I think that says a lot about American culture. But again, I think the real beauty of tea is the way our different cultures have put our traditional stamp on this beverage. Now, if you are a fan of Jane Austen novel, like me, or Downton Abbey, also like me, or All Creatures Great and Small, also me, any of those period movies, period TV shows, period novels, basically anything that takes place in England, tea is essentially presented as a solution for everything. You're tired? Have tea. If you're wired, have tea. Sad? Tea. Stressed? Tea. And that always used to strike me because I thought, well, wait a second. Tea has caffeine in it. How can it be that this is a beverage that people are drinking all day long into the evening? It's kind of the solution for everything. I don't think we think of coffee that way. If a friend of mine was really stressed or sad or needed to relax, I probably wouldn't offer her like a bracing cup of coffee. So what is the difference? Well, some of this is actually scientific. There are compounds in tea that steady out that caffeine buzz and do create a sense of well-being and relaxation in spite of the caffeine content. So even if you don't need an energy boost, you can get a little mood lift from tea. But I think there's also something else to it. And I think it has a lot to do with the way tea is meant to be consumed, the way it's prepared, the way it's served, the way it's really meant to be something that we sit and drink in community with others or in a state of relaxation by ourselves. So that's what I really want to dive into today is this idea that tea can be a ritual that we return to again and again and again in our days that does maybe have this ceremonial aspect to it, but that doesn't have to be all wrapped up in a very specific cultural ceremony, which I have run up against this issue before, trying to find simple videos of tea meditations or tea rituals to share with people so that they could figure out ways to use tea as a mindfulness practice. When I have searched for those videos or just for information about it, there definitely is a certain flavor of tea ritual or tea ceremony that is more represented. And maybe it's that Japanese tea ceremony that we're familiar with that's really got its roots in Zen Buddhism, or the Chinese tea ceremony, which is highly ceremonial and also has its roots in Taoism and Buddhism. And it's just a very different practice than I think the way most of us Westerners are just going about our day to day. It can also kind of seem like you have to have special equipment, special teaware, maybe dress a certain way, maybe have certain kinds of cushions that you sit on the floor. You might even feel like you have to know how to prepare the tea a specific way to get those benefits. Or even in the traditional British tea ceremony that we might be accustomed to, an afternoon tea or what we might call high tea. That's also highly ritualized and very fancy. And most of us just aren't doing that every day. Those things are amazing, and I always look forward to the opportunity to take part in any kind of tea ceremony that's presented to me, especially if the person facilitating the tea ceremony has a lot of experience or background in that particular ritual. I think they're incredible. But I also think there are a lot of people who just enjoy tea as a beverage and also want to find ways to incorporate more moments of stillness and clarity and focus and presence in our days. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Since starting my brick and mortar tea business, which is called Bevy, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many people who either like tea or want to like tea. They want to, as they say, get into tea. And I think it's because they see something in the practice of tea that they want to access. But when I'm talking to the people who are expressing this desire, and typically it's women, I'm also noticing like where they're coming from is a place where they don't even think they can find time in a day to put actual tea leaves into an infuser and pour hot water over it. They're really starting from a place where just getting a bag of tea out of a box is a lot. Or maybe all they're able to do is go to a coffee shop and get a tea that's being made there. So today, what I really want to talk about is how to make this something you can do no matter where you are. So I'm going to talk about a few ways that I personally incorporate tea into my everyday life, just some simple rituals that are really a part of my every single day, very simple things that you can kind of incorporate pieces and parts of into your life if you want. And then at the end of this video, we're just going to do a really simple and brief mindfulness practice with a cup of tea. You'll be able to pause the video then and go make your tea or go get it, like wherever you have to acquire the tea from is totally fine. We're going to keep it really, really simple because I want it to feel like something that you can do in your life any day. Okay, so let me talk about a couple different ways that I personally bring tea into my daily life. I also wanted to mention that I'm not going to be walking you through the process of making a cup or a pot of tea today. That's something we'll save for a video in the future because that's really fun, but also has a little bit of a more technical aspect to it that we'll just get to at a later date. So I'll admit that typically my very first cup of tea of the day is made for me. My husband, Eric, gets up probably about a half an hour before me most days. And unless he has to rush right out the door for some reason, he's in the kitchen already puttering around making his coffee or his tea, and he'll make a cup for me as well. And so usually it's being handed to me hot, and I'm just like sitting down on the sofa, which I realize I am very fortunate. I've never been a coffee drinker. I don't know what it's like to wake up in the morning with a cup of coffee. Now, coffee does have typically quite a lot more caffeine than tea. So if you're used to waking up with coffee, I'm going to guess that tea would be a very different experience for you. But I do hear from people quite often who say they start their day with coffee, but then they want to switch into tea pretty quickly thereafter. So wherever and whenever during the day tea makes its way into your life, I think it's fantastic. When I first get that cup, the first thing I like to do is just hold it in my hands for a few minutes and feel how warm it is. I like to hold it to my face because the warmth just feels different when it's next to your face. I like to look at the steam coming up. It looks really beautiful in the morning. We have a very similar view from the living room, and it won't be this bright in the morning. So usually I'm looking at sort of the sun rising and the steam. And if it's cold outside, maybe there's steam coming off the pond. So there's just a lot of sensory things to take in, and probably even more relevant than what I am doing with that first cup of tea is what I'm not doing. I'm really trying not to look at my phone first thing. I'm not even picking up a book first thing. I love to read in the morning, and I really love to read, with my hand kind of curled around my mug of tea, but I like to give it a couple of minutes because I'm just easing into the day. And the sensation of having that cup of tea as an anchor is a great way to do that. So when I get to my second or third cup of tea, now it's on me to make the tea. Eric has started his day, which I actually really enjoy brewing and preparing the tea. So I don't mind that at all. And I go into my kitchen. And now this isn't always easy, but what I like to do is to sit there while the kettle is boiling and just listen to it boil. I know. It probably takes 2 to 3 minutes if I've got it completely full for my kettle to come to a boil, and I just like to listen to it. Water makes a really distinctive sound as it's kind of ramping up, getting hotter, starting to bubble, coming to a rolling boil. Then my kettle will kind of click off, and then I'll hear the boil start to come down. And this is a great opportunity to bring attention to what I'm doing. So usually I start the day with an English breakfast tea, which is a black tea, and you really want the water at that rolling boil when you pour it over the leaves. If I were making an oolong or a green tea or a white tea, which I often switch to in the afternoon, it's a little lighter and I don't put anything in it. So it's just a little bit of a different experience. Then I'm going to want that water to cool back down because you don't want a boiling water with those kinds of teas. So that's an opportunity for me to pay attention. I might just sit there and watch the little dial on the analog thermometer on my kettle go down slowly and wait for it to get to the temperature I want. Those are just other touch points, other ways to kind of stay connected to the process of what I'm doing. Pouring that water over the leaves and watching the leaves unfurl in the water, scooping the dry leaves out and putting them in the infuser, and then pouring that hot water over and watching those leaves unfurl is another sensory experience that keeps me grounded in the here and now. I'm not claiming that every single day I have time to take this ritual to the limit with every cup of tea I prepare because I drink a lot of tea. So that would be a lot of time of me standing in the kitchen staring at a kettle. But I do find that every time I take the time for it, I do come into a calmer mind space and I do feel just that little moment of peace or freedom or like there's nothing else I have to be doing. I'm doing everything I need to be doing just by existing in this moment. And I think when we have such an achievement mindset all the time where everything has to link to something, there always has to be a goal for something, it feels really good just to not have to do anything, just to have the whole point or the whole purpose of what I'm doing in this moment be sitting in my kitchen, staring at my kettle, listening for the boil. It actually feels very free and peaceful to me and joyful in a way to be able to have time that I'm not using for productivity. So maybe that will resonate with you as well. Usually my second or third cup of tea, depending on what's happening. These days, I've been bringing it into my bedroom and sitting right here on my yoga mat and just looking at this view behind me and sipping my tea. There was a very famous Buddhist monk whose name was Thich Nhat Hanh. And one time I watched a video where he said it would take him up to 2 hours to drink a very tiny cup of tea. I can't tell you that I have gotten to that point yet where I have just spent 2 hours meditating over a single cup of tea. But it does become possible to sort of train your attention where time becomes more expansive and I start to feel more expansive. And I think this is something that people are really aiming for in a meditation practice. I have a little bit of a harder time getting there without something to train my attention on, but that sensory, physical feeling of the teacup in my hand, the sip as it's going down my throat, all of those things really do help me to sort of train my attention and my focus and be more mindful in the moment. I also wanted to mention my evening tea routine because it looks a little bit different than my morning or afternoon tea routine. So typically by mid-afternoon, I am done with caffeine for the day. I haven't noticed it being really problematic for me to have tea after 2 or 3 o'clock, but I do like to preserve my sleep. And honestly, by 3 o'clock, I've had a lot of tea, so I don't need to keep going at that point with caffeinated tea. But I will switch to an herbal sometime in the hour or so after dinner. And that's really fun because I do a lot of my own herbal tea blends. So I like to go into my pantry and kind of play like it's my apothecary and decide like, do I want lemon balm tonight? Am I in the mood for lavender or tulsi, or do I want chamomile or mint? And just kind of looking at those jars is in and of itself a sensory experience. And then deciding what proportions of which do I want? And am I looking for something that's going to be really soothing? Do I feel like I have a cold coming on and I kind of want to address that? Do I need something that's going to help me wind down and fall asleep a little earlier tonight? All of those things kind of inform which herbs I choose. The brewing of it looks very similar to the brewing of another tea that I might do earlier in the day, but it is another opportunity for me to connect with something physical in the flowers or the leaves or the stems or the roots, whatever it is I'm brewing up, and that whole process again. And then sometimes I sit on the sofa with a book. Sometimes I get in the bath with my tea. Either of those are great ways to wind down at the end of the night. And honestly, sometimes I do each. Sometimes I sit on the sofa for a while and then carry that tea into the bath. Okay, so that's a lot of tea. And maybe you're not there. Maybe you're thinking, I don't even know if I like tea. I just want to start with 1 cup of tea a day. You don't have to have any special equipment. You really can start wherever you are with whatever you have. So, we're going to take the next couple of minutes to do a little practice together. And I don't want you to think of this as meditation if the idea of meditation weirds you out, because really, this is just a slow and mindful way of drinking a cup of tea. That's all it is. We're just going to drink a cup of tea. So, if you need to, you can pause this video and you can run into your kitchen and dig a tea bag out of the back of a drawer, or go to the break room if you're at work and whatever tea you can find. If you can't find tea, you could even just heat up some water and put a little squeeze of lemon or some ginger powder or maybe a little chunk of ginger root if you've got any. We're just looking for a couple of sensory experiences right now. So warm water and something flavorful in your cup. And you can come back and meet me here and we're going to drink a cup of tea together. Okay, I'm back. I scooched the camera back a little bit because hopefully that means I'll be able to get the cup more easily into the frame. So I today am drinking an oolong. It's called a milk oolong. There is no milk in it. It's got a milky flavor, but that actually just comes from the leaf itself. And it's one of my absolute favorite teas. I've got my adorable little tea for one pot, which I love because you see on the bottom a cup and a pot and they're separate. So I can pour my tea. Looking at the color of the tea as it's coming out of the pot, the few little fragments of leaves that come out, which I love. I love the way that looks. It just adds so much more texture. Okay, hopefully you have your cup and just take a second to get comfortable. Go on. Okay. So just take a few seconds to settle in to wherever you are. Take a few breaths. Maybe as you're breathing, you can already smell your tea. Mine had such a delicious scent to it. I love oolong for that reason, especially milk oolong. It has this really lovely floral quality to it that I'm starting to experience before I even take a sip. My tea is quite hot. My cup is quite hot, almost actually a little uncomfortable to the touch. Sometimes I like to hold the cup kind of up to my face, my lips. So I can feel that heat. How does yours feel? Is it hot? Is it warm? You don't have anywhere to go right now. There's nothing to do, no place else to be. It's just you and me here together with a cup of tea. I'm going to open my eyes before I sit because I can be quite clumsy and I have a habit of spilling drinks down the front of my shirt. So I'm just going to take my first sip now. How often do we give ourselves time to take a sip of a drink and just hold it in our mouths and swallow it slowly and not feel like we have to rush on to the next sip or put it down and get back to whatever it is we're doing next? I've just taken one tiny little sip, but now I kind of want to have another and experience that again. So I'm going to do that. It's actually kind of incredible how many flavors are in a simple sip of tea. Some of them are quite nuanced and subtle, and we won't get them if we're not paying attention. They'll just be totally lost. So that was just 3 sit, my friend, but I feel really calm. And I hope you also feel really calm, and I hope this is something that you can bring forward into your life the next time you sit down with any hot drink, whatever it is. Give yourself time to really taste it. Give yourself time to really feel it and experience it. And it can become a mindfulness practice. It can become a slow ritual that helps you find little moments of peace and freedom and joy in your day to day life. If this felt good to you, I would love for you to join me at the Kettle community that is on Substack at meganfrancis.substack.com. That's meganfrancis.substack.com. We've got a great community there where we have virtual gatherings on Zoom. We have a private chat space, all kinds of great stuff there. You'll also find articles I've written and podcast episodes and all kinds of things like that. I'm definitely planning to be here with more tea-related content very soon. I release new episodes here on YouTube on Tuesdays, and so I hope you'll join me next week. It has been such a joy having tea with you today. Thanks, friends. Talk to you soon.